Hey guys, Billy Holmes, Holmes Hot Rod and Cycles. Welcome back. I've been gone for about a week on a motorcycle trip out in Southwest Texas in the Big Bend area. We just got back, so we're gonna hop on the 68 C10. We picked up the Crossmember from the Blaster, and so this episode we're gonna tear that down. We're gonna paint it, and then we're gonna start assembling it, getting it back on the truck. So y'all check it out, and let's see what we can do. We got the front Crossmember and some of the rods back here. It was on a pallet. We took a couple of our personal things and got them blasted as well, but there the Crossmember is. The Blaster went ahead and blasted all that nasty stuff off. Got it pretty clean as you can possibly ask for it for being assembled. It's going to make our job a lot easier. Now we can actually get on the bolts and the nuts and everything like that without just being completely covered in grease, baked on, stuff like that. It's gonna be a lot cleaner, and he was able to get it a lot cleaner than I was going to be able to with basically putty knives and wire wheels. Okay, so taking a look at these control arms, first thing we've noticed is that these are replaced ball joints, upper ball joints. You can tell that by these bolts. The factory upper ball joint will have 4 rivets on it, which I'm glad to see that it's already been replaced. It makes our job easier. These need to be replaced. You can see they're getting kind of gritty, and then also the boot there is destroyed. So we're going to go ahead and replace these with new ball joints. I'm not sure exactly when this was replaced. It could have been 30 years ago, but it has been replaced on both sides. On the upper, you can tell because of these bolts. The bottom ones, they're completely toast too. They move a little bit too much. There's not enough resistance there. So we're going to go ahead and do the ball joints. We're going to remove the upper ones, and then while it's attached, and then we're going to go ahead and remove the upper control arm after that. We are going to see if we can replace these bushings in here. Those are pretty much gone too. You want them to move, but there is no resistance, and there's actually, I'm not sure if you can hear it or not, but that's left and right. So we're going to go ahead and start tearing this down. Take these off, pretty self-explanatory. There's just 4 bolts, and you got the nuts underneath here. They are 1/2 inch. That is what it looked like all the way around. Take this boot off here. And then, of course, blasting it before, stuff that is removed, you're going to run into things like this, where you're just going to have to go back with the wire wheel and just clean up this little small area. But I'd rather do that than the opposite of having to work in all of that nasty grime and stuff like that. We're going to we're going to keep the bump stop. It seems like it's in decent condition. It's not tore or anything like that. I'm afraid if we try to remove it, we'll never get it back in. We're probably going to end up breaking this, so we'll most likely just leave this bump stop. It seems like it's in good shape, but it is it's a little brittle up here. So like I said, it's not I don't want to mess with it. We'll paint around it. I'm going to go ahead and remove these 2 bolts. That's going to hold this upper control arm on and get that out of the way. One thing to remember is how many shims that you have. We're putting new spindles, we're putting all new suspension components anyway, so it's going to have to get an alignment, but I'd rather put these back to where they need to be so it's that much closer. So remember how many that you have, put them in a bag. This is the driver's side here, so this will be driver's side front, driver's side rear. You got 3 shims here, 4 shims here. All right, so these 2 bolts, 3/4 inch. Let's see if we can All right, just so if anybody doesn't know how an alignment works up here, let me get the camera. All right, so the way alignment works up this portion, these two, these can go left and right with these shims. You'll put the shims here, you'll take them away or add some. And what that does is these slide back. You can see there, you can slide the whole thing back, you can pull it forward, put enough shims in it, and then you can put more here or you can put more here. That's basically how you get everything in alignment when it comes to these two top portions. That's the way that works. And you got this little spacer washer here. We're going to pull these two nuts out and get this control arm off. So upper control arm is off. These two studs, they stay in there. We will clean these up, wire will them. We'll look at the threads. They are fine thread. We'll clean this up. And of course, this right here is just all the dirt and the grime that was kind of in between here. So do what you want when it comes to blasting. You can tear them all apart if you want and then blast it. So everything like this is clean, but I prefer to do the other way just so I'm not working and getting my tools filthy and my hands filthy and the nuts being really covered in grease and slippery, and it's just a mess. So I'd rather much just sweep this off here and then just wire wheel these than the other way. Top of the control, the upper control arm is off. We're going to break these loose. When we were taking it out, I just cut them out. So we're going to break this one brake hose off on both sides. It's this clip and then it'll slide out. Then we're going to mess with removing the lower control arm. That is 2 U-bolts here. You have one here and then one on the other side here. You take that off and the lower control arm will be off. That's what we're going to work on. Cue the time-lapse video. Okay, you can see we got the lower control arms off with those U-bolts. We got the upper control arms off with these 2 studs and the nuts that put that on. And we went ahead and took the ball joints off as well. There's the cross member. We're going to go ahead and wire wheel the areas up that the blaster couldn't get to. We're going to clean this up a little bit. It got a little bit of moisture on it here after the blast, so we're going to go ahead and scuff that back up. We'll wire wheel this here where the brake hose was, and then we'll flip it over, and where the lower control arm bolts into those saddles underneath this cross member, we'll go ahead and wire wheel that up. But that's how you remove the upper and lower control arms. If you were replacing the entire control arm, you just put the new one in and you're done. This one, we're going to go ahead and break these down. These 2 nuts right here with the grease zerks on them, they come off, and then this this pipe, I guess you would say, comes out. We're going to go ahead and pull those out. We'll clean them up. If they can be reused, we'll reuse them. If not, we'll buy new ones, the bushings, everything like that, and then we'll put grease in them before we put them back. We need to press out the lower ball joints as well. We can put that in a vise or my press and press those out. The upper ones are super easy. The ball joints just unbolt, so we'll wire wheel these up, and then we'll look at the bushings here to see if we need to replace them, and then those are ready for paint as well. Those are the old ball joints that we'll get rid of. But that's it. Control arm is broke down, or the cross member is broke down completely. We're going to start prepping things, getting ready to paint this this black, just like we did the frame. We are most likely going to roll the paint on this time. Have the same paint but instead of spraying and getting it everywhere and on the ground and stuff like that, we'll just take it out here on the rocks and we'll just roll it. There's a lot of little small areas that I can get with a brush that it'll take forever to spray that. So we're going to roll this on, but it'll be the same paint, and we're going to use like a foam roller, so hopefully we get the same texture as we did the last one and a nice smooth finish. All right, so I went ahead and disassembled one of the upper control arms. I just kind of wanted to show you, if you don't already know, what it involves. So basically you have this shaft here that bolts to the cross member. It'll bolt on like this. It has 2 rubber boots on both sides, and these rubber boots are threaded. Hopefully you can see them kind of, there you go, you can see it threaded. You have these end caps that are threaded, dual threaded. There's threads on the inside and then there's threads on the outside. The inside threads, they have a greasert, and they will screw on basically like this. And this, once you tighten this all the way down, that rubber boot then goes there, you fill it up, and it greases everything on the inside. There's threads on the outside here that thread into the control arm themselves. It's basically a kind of like a pivot shaft. These are going to be, if you've never taken these apart, they are going to be seized on there pretty well. They're a little bit bigger than 1.25 inches. I'm not exactly sure what, I tried my 1.25 inch socket and it was just a little too small. So you grab one of the little adjustable wrenches here, or a pipe wrench or something like that, and you can get that down. But you're going to have to put that in a vise or put it back on the cross member on the truck, and you can take it that way. It's just, you're not going to be able to hold this with your hand and break them loose if they're torqued right. So when it's assembled, it'll look like this. One side goes in like this. This will thread in to there, and then once you get to a certain point, it'll actually start threading into the control arm, and it sits like this. I like to get my vise, the clamps, and I will clamp up through here. That way when I go to loosen it, it hits the vise here like my arm, and it holds it. Put the other one on, and that's basically the way that works. But these two are the same on both sides. You'll have to remove both of them. Be careful, there's grease in it. And then you can slide one side in and then pull the other side out. We're going to go ahead and clean this up, get this grease off, and we're going to replace these boots. I believe they sell a kit with just the boots. If not, they do sell a kit with the shaft and stuff like that if you want to go that way. But pretty simple. You can see the threads in here. Just don't cross thread them or you're buying a new control arm. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I had it set up. You can see right here in the vise, I basically have the shaft running underneath the teeth of the vise. That way I can still move it. I can flip it over to loosen this side when you pry it up. And I have it this way, so when you pry down, it hits the front of the vise. This is a pretty big vise. It's mounted to the table, so it's you're going to need to do that or put it back on the vehicle, because these things are tight. This one here has a broken off greasert. We'll have to worry about that later. Grab your wrench, and pretty easy. Just make sure it's tight on it so you don't strip it, and then just give it a good tug, and depending on how much dirt and grease is in it, it's going to be hard like this almost until the threads are out. I like to leave the end cap on. Once it loosens up, I still like to leave it threaded so I can get this one out. If you take this off, it leaves that shaft in there being able to bend while you're trying to take this out. So I'll loosen this up about as much as it can go and still have just a couple of threads engaged in the control arm, just enough where it's wanting to almost turn by hand, kind of like that. And I'll flip it over and I'll grab this one here and give it a good little pull. Luckily for me, these weren't too bad. You may have to get some heat on them if you live up north, but if they've stayed grease, they're not too bad. Without a socket, it's a little slower because there's a lip on the control arm here where it doesn't allow your wrench to go all the way around. If you had a socket, you could do it a lot quicker. And get this one until it's almost able to turn by hand. So this one is turning by hand really easy. This side needs a couple more little turns. Okay, so this will then, like I said, thread out of the control arm and then thread out of the center shaft. Hope you can see that. Do the same thing to the other side. Internal threads, external threads. The external threads are very, very low profile. That's why I'm saying be very careful you do not putting it back on, that you don't cross thread it. Now you should be able to slide one side of the shaft in, depending on, there you go. Sometimes that boot will get in your way and this comes out. You can see the threads in here. And then the shaft itself, you can see now how I have it clamped in there. It's not really even actually holding the shaft, it just keeps the control arm from rotating. And there is the shaft with the rubber boots. There it is. Alright, so we have the crossmember stripped down, and we got some more of this satin black chassis paint. This time it's in a can. We're going to roll it on with a foam roller, not a brush roller. Foam roller lays down better. We're going to roll this on, that way I don't have to take the floor off and overspray everything and retape all of our customers' vehicles and stuff like that. So that, and there's some small crevices that is easier with a brush. But I'm going to go ahead and start painting this. We're going to paint the top. I like these foam rollers. Like I said, it seems to go on a lot smoother. This chassis paint supposedly has, the one I have now has the primer built in, hence why I didn't spray the primer on it. It's kind of like an all-in-one rust encapsulator. So we're going to paint this on, give it a nice coat. Not too thick, we don't want any runs. The engine's going to cover a lot of the top portion here. Really the only thing that you kind of see is up here when you open the hood and when the engine's in, and then of course if you crawl underneath you'll see the bottom of it. But we're going to go ahead and time lapse it, but we're going to brush as much as we can get on. We're going to put a nice coat on it, let it dry, and then put another coat depending on how it sets up. I'm putting this on just a little bit thicker. It seems to not be running. That's what I'm worried about. Once I find out how it flows on, that'll tell me if I can put thicker coats on or have to go with thinner coats. So we're going to go ahead and knock this out and we will be back. back. It's a new day. We let the Crossmember dry overnight. We painted as much as we could on the top half of it, on the sides. So we went ahead and flipped it over, and today we're going to paint the underside of it. While that's drying, once we're done with that, while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and start getting the spindles and the disc brake conversion started. We're going to start packing some bearings, greasing them, and then starting to assemble that. So we'll show you how to do that. That's not very hard at all. But for right now, we're going to get back on the Crossmember and get painting the rest of it. You can see on this side, it's got a lot more basically cups in it. So it's going to take a little bit longer with the brush than it did yesterday. But we're going to start by rolling it as much as we can, and then we'll get the brush. But I was really impressed with the way the other side, the top side, once it's dry, we'll flip it over and show you, but really impressed how it came on, or rolled on. It's pretty smooth. I think a lot of it has to do with this foam roller that I'm using, not necessarily those normal rollers that you use like to paint a house or a fence or something like that. This one is foam, so it's a little bit smoother, doesn't leave as much texture. And I've learned that you can flop it on here pretty heavy and go back and just smooth it out so it doesn't leave any runs. But it's pretty forgiving, honestly. Seems to be doing well. And then I'll go back and, like we did on the other side, and hit the rest of it up with the brush that I can't get to with the roller. Try to get inside as much as possible, just so it doesn't rust, and then after a couple of months it starts leaking or running down when it gets wet or anything like that. Man, some of these words, phrases I'm using, if you didn't know I was working on a car, it'd be a good little woman's book, if you knew what I mean. My brain don't think fast enough to change what I'm trying to say. Turns out pretty X-rated. But we'll give this a good coat, and then we'll let it tack up just a little bit, and then go back and put another coat with the actual brush on, and it should be good to go. I noticed yesterday it didn't take 2, 3, 4 coats or anything like that. The stuff goes on pretty heavy. So that's the name of the game. We're going to go ahead and hit the time lapse, and we'll get back to it. Okay, you can see that we have one of the hub assemblies here. We have 2 sets of bearings. We have the bigger one, which is going to be the inner, and then we have the smaller, which is going to be the outer. Also has the seal for the back side, and then once we put it on the spindle, then we have the castle nuts and the pins and the washers. So we're going to go ahead and flip this over to the back side, and we're going to grease and pack the inner bearing, and then put the seal on so it holds it, and then we can flip it over and do the front. The front doesn't have anything until you put it on the spindle to hold it. So if you did the front now and flipped it over, the bearing would fall out. So we're going to do the inner one. You want to look at your bearing, make sure it's good. There's nothing crazy before you even start messing with it. Put it in here, make sure it's the right one. Looks good. So we're going to go ahead and start packing this. I am using this high temp disc brake wheel bearing grease. They sell different types. Just be sure to use the right one for you. They also make machines, little gadgets that you can do, and it knocks it out in a couple of seconds. But I've found that this is the best method to do it. And if I did it any other way, I'd bring shame to my grandfather's name. So we're going to put a little blob on my hand here. Hopefully you can see that. And then we're going to go around, and you want to basically pat it down on your palm while you rotate it. And what that's doing is it's shoving grease through here and into the bearings. And you basically just turn it, slap it down in there, turn it, slap it down in there, turn it, and slap it down in there. Once you go all the way around a couple of times, you should start seeing your grease blob go down. That means it's getting in the bearing. You start seeing how it's getting smaller and more on the bearing itself. Once you've gone all the way around, I like to wipe it clean, put it back on there. And if you were slapping it this way, turn it over, and then you can slap it in this way. So you're working it from both sides. Again, my X-rated analogies, I guess. But in my opinion, this is the best way. This is the old school way. This is going to get it in there. I'm not saying that the little gadgets don't work and everything, but I've never had a problem doing it this way. And like I said, if I did it any other way, I'd bring shame to my grandfather's name. So I'm doing it old school way. So once you start getting the grease all the way in there, you'll start running out of grease. You can pull some of them out here from the inside and then do it a little bit more. And you just want to basically pack it so it starts coming out the face of the bearing. So basically is getting rid of any empty voids in there. All right. You can see here where it's completely full and it's starting to come out of the bearings here, and the top part is completely full. So you can wipe here, and if you cleaned it like this, and then you can scrape your hand clean. This is the only time I use gloves, really. You can scrape your hand clean, get all that excess off while dragging it. And you can see what I just did, and it's starting to come out this way. It's pretty easy, just a little messy. Start dragging it and see how it's starting to come out. That lets you know that your bearing is, see if I can get it, sorry, is completely full. So this bearing's good to go. I'm going to wipe off a little bit of the excess, and then I'm going to use that excess to wipe on the hub here. Doesn't have to be real thick or anything like that. Just get it in there, and then it can only go one way. Drop it down in there, make sure you're good. I like to, once I put it in there, put a little bit more grease along the edges, pack it in there a little bit better here before you put that seal on. There you go. And that is done. Your bearing is there. So I'm going to take my glove off here and if it doesn't rip. Okay, glove is off. Now the next step is to get this seal. It can only go one way. If you look at it, it's basically lipped here. The seal will hammer in here. And when I say hammer, I'm not using that as a like hard technical term. You want to put it in here real even, and then you can get like a little mallet, a little small ball peen hammer if you're careful, a piece of wood, a socket, and then you can tap that in around. You don't want to hammer one side in and then try to hammer the other. You got to basically work it kind of like a hula hoop. So let me go get my little hammer. You want to just start tapping it around. Okay, and that's it. It's completely flush. Wipe any of the excess off there. And you have a greased, packed bearing with the seal. And before you put this, or after you put it on the spindle, you can get some brake clean and wipe all this off. There's no reason to have grease in here. It's just asking for it to be flung everywhere. So now that that's done, you'll notice that you can flip it over and the bearing doesn't fall out, right? That's why you do the back first. If you did that to the front, as soon as you flip it over, since there's nothing holding this on until you get it on the spindle, then it would fall out and be a big mess. So repeat the same thing, just the bearing's a little bit smaller. Make sure it's good to go. Everything looks good. This can only go one way. Make sure that this fits in there. Looks good. And then once that is greased and everything like that, I'm going to show y'all. It'll come with a washer that is keyed. The key only goes one way on the spindle. So basically once that's keyed, that will fall in like that. And then you have your castle nut. The castle nut will then go on top of that. And then you have your cotter pin. The cotter pin will go through the end of the spindle like that. And then you're good to go. That's what holds the bearing in. That's what tightens the preload and everything like that. That's the next step. So I'm going to get another pair of gloves on and I'm going to pack this and we will get the spindle over here and put it all together. All right, so you can see we have the spindle here now, and I started to grease this. I wanted to talk about, a lot of people wonder, do you need to grease the spindle? Do you not need to grease the spindle? So I always put a light coat. I'm in South Texas. We don't have to worry about a whole lot of rust. I know some of the guys up north, they pack this thing. I mean, it looks literally, they just flip it over and dip it into the grease and bring it back. That is to keep it from rusting so they can actually pull the hub off and the bearings off when they need to replace it. You're not greasing this in order to allow the bearing to spin. The bearing sits down on here, and when it's preloaded and it's tight how it needs to be, it doesn't spin on the spindle. The bearing itself spins around, not on the actual spindle. The hub itself, it sits and it'll spin on the bearing. So you're not greasing this to allow the bearing to spin on the spindle. It does not. It's a press fit. It's super tight. Now, I'm not saying that it'll never in its life ever turn, but you're not greasing this for the bearing to spin on the spindle. You're greasing it, one, to keep the moisture out, and two, to keep it from seizing. So if you ever do need to pull this off, the bearing itself does not seize to the spindle. Okay. If you know something I don't, put it in the comments, but that's pretty common knowledge in my opinion. So I went ahead and just put a light coat of grease on this just to keep it from rusting and seizing together, and to allow a little bit easier of assembly. But that's it. It's not on there to spin the bearing. So this one is done. We are going to put this on. Be real careful. You can actually look down the hole and guide the spindle in so you're not jamming the bearing in a weird direction. The upper bearing sometimes will, gotta get it just right, but bottom bearing's gotta, there you go, it's gotta sit down just right. And a lot of times that upper bearing will push out just a little bit, but all you do is push it back down. You got to line it up. It's got a little bit of wiggle. There you go. Don't want to force anything. You shouldn't be hammering nothing, prying on nothing, nothing like that. We're good to go there. You want to look down the side. You can't really see, but you want to make sure that it's pretty much bottomed out where that seal is. There's not a huge gap or anything like that. It's spinning fine. Nothing's jammed up. And then we'll go ahead and you can see, hopefully, flip it around. There's a key mark here for this washer to sit where it needs to go, like that. And then for now, just to hold it on the spindle, you will loosely put the castle nut on. Well, maybe. Did I give the wrong thread? Nope, there you go. Okay. You can just do it hand tight if you want, because you're going to have to do some adjustment once it gets on the vehicle. But that's it. That is completely installed. Now, of course, once it gets on, you can do the brakes. There's no squealing. There's no binding, no nothing. Bearings are good to go. So I'm going to pull the other one over and do the same thing. All right, we're back to the Crossmember. The Crossmember has been painted, top and bottom. It has finally dried, and so we're going to roll it underneath the truck and get it into place. We're going to jack it up and slide a few bolts in there until we can get up out of there, and then we're going to finish everything off with a nice set of grade 8 hardware. Let's get to it. We're going to put these 4 bolts in first. These 4 bolts, the nut is actually welded onto the Crossmember. So we're going to go ahead and put these on, and then I can move the jack, and we'll be able to slide the rest of the hardware on. Those are going to include grade 8 bolts as well, but then they need to be backed with nuts. These are the only bolts that can actually thread in by themselves. All right, should be able to now remove the jack and it B6. There you go. All right, let's take a closer look here. There's the bolts. Looks good. There's a couple of small runs that happened to be basically when the crossmember was upside down. I painted the bottom. It actually had ran through the holes over here and kind of had a little run that way. So I'll go back through once I have it all bolted up, and we will get those runs out. If we have to, we'll scrape them off and then touch up the paint, or if it's soft enough, we can maybe roll over a small coat on top of it and smooth out those runs. But they're going to be underneath the engine mounts anyways. They're up in here in these bolts, so you're not going to see it, but it looks well. Looks good. Now we can start building out our front suspension. Stoked the way it came out. Awesome. Okay, we got all the grade 8 hardware in, torque the spec. It's looking good. See there, everything lined up beautiful. No issues, no problems. And now we are ready for the engine mounts, which we have there. We're going to have to clean them up. These are different than the straight 6 ones that came out. The V8 ones, I believe, are a little bit shorter, and we'll move it forward just a little bit. So those are actually factory V8 mounts that you will need if you're converting straight 6 to V8 and want the engine sitting down and I believe forward a little bit. You can use the original straight 6 ones. It's just going to push your engine kind of close to the firewall and have it sitting up a little bit. So if you got a big HEI distributor, it's going to be real tight right there. So we're going to clean those up, paint them, and that's going to be the next step, is getting them in there and then rebuilding the control arms, or possibly buying new ones depending on how that goes. All right, that's it for today's episode, guys. I appreciate y'all stopping by. Give us a like and a subscribe if you like what you're seeing. Next episode, we're going to work on getting the control arms back onto the truck, and with all new ball joints, all new bushings and stuff like that. And then we're going to slap the master cylinder on and start wrapping up the front end so we can get it back down on the ground so we can move to the rear suspension. I appreciate it, guys. Thank y'all.